computer. Okay.
I'm laughing at the fact they're calling kids on a Saturday.
I know this is crazy. All right, we're gonna try to go live, and if it doesn't work, I'm just gonna record. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So we are here today to talk about parent advocacy and why it's important. Alisha, can you just let me know, can you see where I'm on live on your screen, or do you just see where it says parent advocacy? Why is it important?
Yes, I see that.
Okay, all right. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Let me go down here, go to our next slide. All right, so first let's go over everything that we're gonna cover today. We're gonna go over who we are, my mission for PA and Associates Consulting Group, our welcome. We're gonna discuss what parent advocacy is, our purpose, why it matters. We're gonna talk about problems. In our next live, we'll talk about solutions. We'll touch on the school to prison pipeline. When do I become a threat? Advocacy, we're going to compare and contrast what it is, and then do some Q&A and wrap it up from there.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start off and talk about who I am. I'm Dr. Yolanda PA, certified New York State District Leader, former principal, educator. I'm also the founder of PA and Associates Consulting Group, LLC, and my newfound nonprofit, PA and Associates Knowledge Foundation, Inc. It talks about my passion for creative, positive learning environments. This is pretty much why we're on here today. And building positive learning environments through relationship building by merging proactive behavior and academic support. So today I have with me Alisha. She is my special guest. We're going to be talking about parent advocacy together. So Alisha, you can go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are.
Okay. Hi, my name's Alisha Teruel-Conethan. I'm a licensed real estate professional in the Buffalo, Niagara region. I'm also licensed down in the New York City area, New York City, Long Island area in Elmont, New York. I'm a founding member of the local chapter up here in the Buffalo, Western New York area of NAREB, which is National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which seeks housing and democracy, or democracy and housing rather. And I'm also an active volunteer. I'm a volunteer with the Buffalo Niagara Association of Realtors on the DE&I committee, for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, for those who may not know what that is, and Best Practices committees. I've always, as it says in the caption there, that I've always enjoyed and helping and wanting to see people elevate both personally and professionally, just wanting to help people and see people do better, regardless of again the area, whether it's personal or professional. And I'm here today. Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Alicia.
No, I was just going to say, and I'm here today to talk to you, like you said, about parent advocacy and the importance of it in schools and what's going on right now with my situation at the Amherst Central School District.
Okay. And I completely forgot, Alicia, to let them know that you're my realtor. You helped me find my person.
Yes.
Step that out. This is how we connected. She's a really good realtor. So if you're looking for a new home, check her out. Not play any games when it comes to finding what you want.
Thank you. I try to listen.
You did a really good job at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I just want to go over the mission of PA and Associates Consulting Group, and that is to support educational organizations and businesses and significantly improving workplace performance. I also help parents as well, and this is one of the reasons why we're having this live today. We work in partnership with our clients to create a long-term effective change that is data-driven, goal-oriented, individualized, and focused on results. People and relationships are a priority because people create change. And I feel like that's our number one thing. And the reasons why we're here right now is because we want to create change. We need other schools and other business organizations to get on board with that.
Yes.
That's our mission, and this is why we're here today. All right, so welcome to our presentation today. And we want to start off with a quote from Rob Page. There is no more powerful advocate than a parent armed with information and options. And this is what we're going to be focusing on today, information and options. We want to make sure that we get everybody on board with our purpose for today, and hopefully we can get some people to support us in this endeavor. All right, so what is parent advocacy? There's different types of parent advocacy. You can do it through healthcare, community settings, but today we're just going to be focusing on educational advocacy, and that involves ensuring that children have and receive the appropriate supports and accommodations to meet their academic as well as their social emotional needs. So it doesn't matter if it's academic or if it's social emotional, if it's behavior, any of those things, you have the right to advocate for, to make sure that your child receives those supports so that they can be successful in school. All right, so our purpose, give me a minute, I just want to see. Okay, she's sending me enough. Okay. So our purpose today, we want to help other parents navigate their way through the education system. We're going to do that by providing information so that you can do that as a parent. We're going to identify and address issues. We're definitely going to identify and address issues today. Discuss common issues that may arise in educational settings and other strategies for identifying and addressing these issues. We're going to hopefully empower other people to take action and make a difference. And then build effective communication skills, because this is where I feel like things start to fall apart. So that means providing the tips and the strategies for communicating assertively, building positive relationships with schools and staff, and advocating for your child needs in a constructive manner.
Yes.
Alisha, I heard you start to talk. Did you want to add something to that?
Oh, I was just saying, yes, that communication and effective communication is important. I know we'll get into stuff, but that's an issue that we've been dealing with for several years. Expressing concerns and them continuously being ignored. There's no other word I could really use.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Not being heard. All right, so why does advocacy matter? It is a very important topic, particularly with students of color, because we're underrepresented. Our children are underrepresented, especially in urban schools due to systematic inequities and disparities that exist within the education system. I feel like I'm constantly repeating myself when I say that this system is designed for some people to succeed and for other people to fail. All right, so here are some ways in which this underrepresentation manifests for students of color. One way is through limited access to advanced courses and programs. So that means that students aren't given the opportunity to choose from courses that are beyond basic, okay, for advanced courses. And these are usually the courses that they need to get into really good colleges. So there's very little of these courses being offered in urban settings and with students of color. Another thing which is really big, which we're really going to be talking about today with Alisha, is unfair disciplinary action. That's a really big thing. Just recently, they were talking about the number of students that are being expelled. So we're going to touch on that a little bit more, touch on a little bit about the zero tolerance policies and how it doesn't actually support kids in any way, shape, or form, and the high suspension rates just overall.
Right.
The other thing is lack of representation in leadership and teaching positions. Very little Black principals, Black teachers across the board, limited access to resources and support services, not having those things available to actually prevent what we just talked about, those unfair disciplinary actions, underrepresentation in curriculum and materials, and disparities in achievement and graduation rates. I'm pretty sure that we could probably add on a whole lot more, but just for the sake of today, I wanted to get this out here just to give you a snapshot of some of the inequities and really have parents think about how these exist within the schools that their kids attend right now. One of the questions that I have is really, if this does exist in your school, any of these topics that I just talked about, if it does exist, I want you to really think about, is your school doing anything to prevent it or to turn things around or to make sure these barriers no longer exist in the school? Like, what's being done right now? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people right now that are either watching this or will watch this that have also gone through some issues with their schools. And I'm wondering, have you asked or advocated for opportunities for the administration or teachers to have proactive support to prevent these things. So we'll get a little bit more into that too later on. And I forgot to mention that if you're watching this later on, go ahead and post something in the comments. We'll definitely, Alisha and I will be coming back to this to respond to the comments, even if I'm not able to do it right now. What I want to also make sure that you know is that this is a two-part presentation. Today we'll be talking about the problem, and then we'll come back next Saturday and we'll talk about some solutions, okay? So problem, limited resources, okay? Schools in low socioeconomic status neighborhoods face budget constraints. One of the other things that I think we don't really focus on enough is that the income of the community that the school is in definitely determines the amount of resources they have or the quality of resources that kids have in school. Language and cultural barriers, historical mistrust of institutions. And this is just where parents just don't feel like they are being accepted. Like you just said, Alisha, they feel like they're not being heard. And this is historical, like this isn't anything that's new. And there's some things that schools can do to prevent that from happening, like making sure they're welcome and giving them opportunities to participate. And like you said, Alisha, hearing them out, making sure that they have a voice. But this is definitely nothing new, and this is across the board. Time and energy constraints, all right? So a lot of the problem is that, our parents have a lot that's going on. Sometimes they're working 2 or 3 jobs, and, there's a lot of issues that come with living in a low socioeconomic status neighborhood, and sometimes those obligations and different things like that, or those challenges also is like a barrier too. And there's systematic inequities and discrimination across the board. So low socioeconomic status neighborhoods may face systematic inequities and discrimination that impact educational opportunities and outcomes for students. So that means that the parents are going to encounter some type of resistance from the schools and from administrators and policymakers when they're trying to advocate for change. And Alisha, with that being said, I can't wait for us to really get into
I'm a living witness. I'm a living witness for multiple years.
All right. And so one of the major reasons why Alisha and I wanted to talk to you all today is because of the school to prison pipeline. You'll read articles and it'll make it seem like this doesn't exist when actually it does. And that means that there's many under-resourced schools that become pipelines or gateways for placing increased reliance on police rather than teachers and administrators to maintain discipline. And that means that the way that the school is set up actually supports kids going into prison, all right? Whether that be zero tolerance policies, whether that be unfair practices, like not having the students that are being disciplined, having their voice heard or anything like that, or having things in place that actually sets them up for what they're actually going to experience once they're in prison. Right? So the school to prison pipeline.
I can speak to that, you know that. I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off.
No, you're right. You're right. The school to prison pipeline is a trend where students of color and students with disabilities are pushed out of schools and forced into the juvenile criminal justice system at alarming rates. So it is a process by which students are forced out of school through disciplinary policies like zero tolerance, which increases their chances of ending up in prison. And if you wanted to hear a little bit more about this, I did a live some time ago, I don't know if it was a year or 2 ago, where we talked about the school to prison pipeline and actually went in depth into what it was and different things like that, and we provided resources. So I'll make sure that I go back later on and add that link to my YouTube video if you want more information about that. But I'm pretty sure after Alisha tells her story, you'll have an idea of what we're talking about here. All right, so this slide is going to lead us into Alisha's story, but I want to touch on it just a little bit. And it says, when do I become a threat? So I saw this on Facebook, and just to see the baby, then to see the child, and then to see the man, it's like, when does this actually happen? When does a Black boy, a Black man, become a threat to society, right? And how do we bring more awareness to this happening and the biases that are connected to this way of thinking? Because it's really important to think about, especially in the school setting, especially when we're considering disciplinary actions, zero tolerance policies, and when we're talking about the school to prison pipeline. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop share right here. All right. Okay.
You're seeing that actually made me emotional thinking about what's going on with my kid.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a point where I wanted to give you an opportunity to just give us a summary of what happened so far with your son, and then what led us up to this day. And then we'll go ahead and get into the video footage, and we'll talk a little bit about that, like we talked about, each one at a time. So you can go ahead and let our viewers know what has been your experience with advocating for your son, and what has been your experience when faced with a disciplinary decision that you did not agree with, that you felt was unfair. And give us a synopsis of your story.
Okay, well, I guess we start from 8th grade because that's when he was given exclusionary discipline. He was suspended for 10 weeks for a fight that happened on a Sunday afternoon, but just so happened to be on school grounds. This particular kid was bothering him because he had told me about the young man, again, bothering him, bullying him on some level. I don't want to say on some level, it's just what it was. He was threatening to beat him up at different times and things like that. So I'm just going to call it what it was. They, like I said, ended up having a physical altercation on a Sunday afternoon, and the school got wind of it, which is fine. I didn't think that they wouldn't. The cops had informed us that they would tell the school because it happened, and they both children attend the school, and so we were expecting to speak with the principal. It was supposed to be a 5-day suspension, which we didn't agree with. Just because, again, it happened on a Sunday afternoon and it wasn't during school hours, but we said we would take that. Okay, fine, we'll take that. But then it was quickly escalated to a superintendent's hearing. Again, this is my son's first physical altercation. This young man is larger than him, and the young man didn't, I guess, win the fight. He didn't win. And so I don't know, we feel that put fear into the school, the administration. We were very vocal and have been for years prior to that regarding racism issues in the school district and racial issues. And so his dad and I also felt that there was a situation there where they weren't addressing that concern. And so there was a fear for, again, people that look like them, that you're not addressing an issue. And so it begins to fester. And even though the young man that my son fought was not white, he was a minority also, he was Black. At the end of the day, there's still a fear there. And because we're not addressing issues that are being brought up by the parent. The child themselves, my son, was being vocal about that and about the fact that he was bringing stuff up, and he was addressing situations, racial bullying that he was experiencing within the school district. And so again, instead of looking to, like you said earlier, being proactive and making programs or making adjustments rather to make him and others like him feel welcome, they basically ignored our concerns and regarding cultural diversity. So I bring that in again just to say the fear that was set forth, and then they gave him a 10-week suspension behind this fight. Did I answer? Okay. I answered your question? No, because I know I can go on. So
definitely. So you brought up a couple interesting points, and I feel that we need to just elaborate on a few of those points. So the first one that you brought is like being proactive, right? So that is the responsibility of the school to actually have some supports in place to prevent things like that from happening, right? The other point I want to make is that this did happen on a Sunday, and I don't think a lot of parents are aware of this. And because it was on school property, right, this is what made it a school issue. So I just wanted to comment on that because I know as a principal, we had some things that happened online, some things that didn't necessarily happen on school property, but if the issue was actually brought to the school, then it really becomes an issue. So this was really the first one that I've heard that if it does happen on school property, it's a school issue, right? And it happened on a Sunday, so it wasn't even during the weekday, right? And then the other part of it is just like being proactive. I don't understand how schools can continue to have these issues and they don't want to take the proactive approach. For the most part, it's typically reactive. So we're going to wait for it to happen, and then we're going to talk about what to do. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be what? Suspension, right? And when you suspend a kid, what happens is if you don't put all the other supports in place, and we'll talk about that at our next slide, like restorative practices and social emotional learning and circles and all of those good things that help students talk about what they're feeling and their anger or whatever it is that they're feeling, the frustration or whatever it is, and get it out, right? It's going to continue to happen. And I think that is the reason why we have such high suspension rates. because the suspension is a disciplinary action. It's not really preventing it from happening another time. It's like, okay, you did this behavior, so now I'm just going to make sure that you're at home for these few days. But when you come back, it's not really going to be resolved, right? So it continues to be an issue, and that's how we get these high suspension rates. One of the reasons why I was so happy to get on here with you today is because I feel like it's going to bring more attention to what parent advocacy is. I know we've had conversations before, and I said that I felt like a lot of parents don't know that they have that right? Mm-hmm. And I can't wait for us to do part 2 because I want to really get into the solutions. Like, what can you do when you're faced with this scenario? Or what can you do when you're faced with that scenario? And one of the reasons why I started this company, and I'm going to end with this and we'll get started. One of the reasons why I wanted to start this company and why I did start this company is because I wanted to bring awareness to these issues, but I also wanted to be able to support parents and teachers and the educational community because we're at a point where we need to change. And change is hard, right? It's hard to get people on board with that. It's easier for people to hide behind the school walls, and that's like a problem doesn't exist, right? So one of the things that Alisha and I want to make sure that we do today is not only get the word out there, but also touch base with other parents. And we were talking about with our nonprofit is to get a parent advocacy group going. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Q&A. So Alisha, I didn't tell you this, but what I'm going to do on my website is actually add a page for parent advocacy. And I'll set up a section where they can go in and give us their information or whatever so we can start to take names for those people who want to be a part of this endeavor, because that is our number one priority right now. We want to get more parents on board because there's strength in numbers, right? When you advocate for one kid, you advocate for many kids. And yes. I need our parents to know that they have a voice and that their voice actually matters and it counts.
Yes, and wanting them to feel comfortable to say something and understand that it is okay for you to say something. It is okay for you to stick up for your child, for you to advocate for your child. I want to circle back really quickly just so no one's confused. I did not go to the school and tell them, though my son was telling me that the young man was bothering him, because I don't want people to think like the school knew that he was getting bullied. I'm going to be honest, because that's what we do. I did not acknowledge, we didn't say anything to the school about that because one, my son he's not a fighter. So, did I know that was going to happen? No, because he doesn't fight. You understand? Like, he's not really a fighter. But I just wanted to let people know that just because I don't want it to be misconstrued that like the school was made aware. And even with that, they have a 0% bullying rate if you look on their line online, which you guys can also access that information. New York State School. I don't know the exact website, but it's important to know that there's a lot of information that we don't know is out there that is also supposed to be being put out there. And to have a 0% bullying rate, I don't care what generation you're in, that's impossible. And especially now with cyberbullying and all of that type of stuff. So, but I just wanted to just say that because I didn't want it to be misunderstood that, that we told, but I mean, how many kids actually really do say that they're being bothered and or parents address it? Because sometimes it's conversations you're having with your child and not necessarily going back, especially if you know the demeanor of your child. Not that my son was scared. I knew that he was not. But that, again, didn't know it would lead to physical altercation. But I just wanted to make sure I said that part.
I think that when you talk about they're saying that there's 0% of bullying that's going there on there. One of the things that we did when I was a principal was actually have opportunities for students to speak freely, right? And if they didn't feel safe enough to speak freely, like we have boxes around the school where they could write information down, even if they wanted it to be anonymous, and put it in a box and we would circle back to it. So I'm wondering what kind of things that they have in place to actually get these accounts.
Well, they did have that.
There, you know what I mean? Like, what is the reason why it's not being reported? Because like you, I refuse to believe, especially in this day and age, that no one is being bullied at all, right?
Right. And that they did have those boxes, like you said, that there was like a box or a bullying box or something that somebody could put in there, if they were being bothered. So they did have that. I'm not going to say that they didn't have that, because it was there. Yeah. But to have that, but then to have a 0% bullying rate doesn't make sense, especially when I know my child and others are dealing with that type of, dealing with that type of situation.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make sense at all. It really doesn't. I refuse to believe that in any school, like period, in any school. So as a parent, that would be a concern for me too, because if it's not being reported, then it's not being. That's the bigger,
Exactly.
that's the bigger picture right here.
Yes. And so then if it's not being reported, is it really being addressed?
Right. Right.
How and how do you, right? And how do you know as a parent and or a kid whether or not it's being addressed? And sometimes, again, even if people are suffering, a lot of times they suffer in silence, and then it can go bad.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they do something to someone else or they do something to themselves.
Right. And then the bigger part of it is about relationships. Do they have relationships with the students that they serve? Because that's a whole nother picture right there. Because when you do have relationships, then students feel safe enough to talk to you. They feel safe enough to report it. They feel like their voice is going to be heard. But if you don't have those relationships, then why would I come and speak to you? Why would I make it seem like this is an issue if I know that you're not going to address it, or if I know that you're not going to hear my side, or any of those things, right? It would be no point in me bringing it up as an issue because I know it's not going to be addressed.
And that was
So
literally, yep. And that was literally a complaint and something that my son said in one of the meetings we had with the school, that I brought issues to you, and I asked him specifically, this was specifically the racial situation and about racism and white kids running around calling Black kids niggers and Mexicans wetbacks and calling, so racial bullying going on. My son, I asked him specifically, he said, because his comment was, I've said stuff to you guys and you didn't listen, you just brushed it under the rug and ignored it. And so I asked him to specify. I said, are you talking about the racism stuff? And his answer was yes.
Yeah.
And I had already reached out to the school regarding cultural diversity, like I said. But yeah, so I don't want to, I'm not going off on a tangent. I know we're talking.
Right, right. But that's a good
Well,
point, because what happens when you don't address it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it explodes. And now nobody wants to take accountability for that. Nobody wants to take a role in it getting that far when it could have been prevented. Which is why I try to focus so much on being proactive. Like, being proactive is so much better, because if you can prevent it, why not do that? Why wait for it to happen? You know what I mean? But being reactive is one of the issues and the reasons why the school to prison pipeline exists. It's kind of like set up that way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And parents really need to pay attention to that. One of the other things that I talked about before was how they build prisons based on literacy rates, right? They actually do. They build prisons based on literacy rates. And it starts as far as back, I think, third grade or fourth grade literacy rate, something like that. So it's all a part of the system. And then we need to bring more awareness to it so that we can have what we need to provide the support for our kids moving forward to prevent it. Because if they're not going to do nothing about it, then we need to be able to do something about it as parents or as concerned community members or whoever you are that plays a role in these types of scenarios.
Right, right.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and start off, because I'm going to start with the videos, and I'm going to go through each one, and then we're going to talk about each one before we move on to the next, because we want to paint a picture for all of our viewers. But just give them a snapshot of what happened without going into really good detail. What happened? So this is after the fact, after the incident you've already discussed.
Okay, so like I said, 8th grade, he was suspended for his physical altercation, no weapons. They claimed the severity of the fight is why he was given 10 weeks. After he came back from school, just to give them a quick rundown, after he came back to school, he was not allowed to freely walk through the halls. He was made to, what they labeled it as was my son's safety reentry plan. And he had to walk down, he had to wait for the second bell. He couldn't walk freely amongst the halls, amongst the kids, and in the halls amongst other kids. He had to walk in a certain line, down a certain hallway, go down a certain set of stairs. So he was basically on parole and on chains, okay, invisible chains, when he came back to school in 8th grade. He had a situation with a teacher a couple of weeks later who felt it was okay to call kids jerks. My son said that's not okay. So him advocating for just respect, mutual respect, which is what is in the school code of conduct, which a lot of parents, we don't even know and read about that. We sign paperwork and we send it right back.
Parents are signing off on it without reading it. That's a really good point. No, read it.
Because,
I'm going to take this home, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to come back and sign it if I agree, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things they used to try to implement that myself, my husband, and my son signed off on this school code of conduct in regards to how he's to conduct himself and how behavior is, how he's supposed to behave. And so, and that was another reason he violated this school code of conduct. And that is why they felt it was okay to implement a 10-week suspension. But again, the teachers decided it was okay to call the kids jerks. My son said it wasn't okay. And then they sent him out for another 5 weeks. So out of the 10 weeks, he was given 5, had certain stipulations that he was supposed to follow to be able to come back early. When he came back early, we were again put with this reentry plan that was different. Had the situation with the teacher. She was given off school the next day, and my son was given immediate 5-week suspension after that. He was then suspended again regarding a racial situation where a kid said something that was later. So it began to become a system of them constantly trying to suspend him and swiftly implementing disciplinary action against him, though he hadn't had any prior. He was an honor roll student 6th and 7th grade. Okay, this happened 8th grade. So it was a year of complaints. I had to write forms, DASA forms against Teachers Dignity for All Students Acts, forms. There were forms that I needed to write that I found out about. Now we're here, 10th grade, right? I'll fast forward. It was a year or more of I would say agony on some level, but a learning experience, but something I wouldn't want any family to have to go through. Right. Yesterday, so now we'll fast forward. They are suing me. That's something different. I know I can't get into the legalities of that, but but it relates to the situation. 3 years later, they're trying to come for me regarding this situation that happens in 8th grade. We're now here yesterday, like you said, and he had a situation with the teacher. Again, like you said earlier, people and families, right? We have things going on. Sometimes there's emergency situations, there's stuff that's happening. I ended up calling my son and he was in class, and the teacher ended up saying that he left class for I'm sorry, I apologize. He left class for a brief moment. He stepped out of class to talk to me. He went back into class. The teacher said, "You left class without asking permission." And he said, he apologized. He said, "My fault, I'm sorry, that was my mom." She said her reply to him was, "I don't care that it was your mom, and your mom should know better than to call you during school hours, and you can tell her that I said that," or something along the lines of, "and I'll tell her that myself." But what happened is that when he got off the phone with me, before he went into class, we got off, I knew he was still upset about a situation. So I called him back, and I happened to be on the phone while this was occurring. And so I heard him start to say, "What did you say? Oh, say it now. Say it. My mom's on the phone now. My mom's on the phone now. Say what you said now." And so then I heard the verbal altercation going on. The woman wasn't saying anything. And I just heard my son saying, say what you said to my mom. Say what you said. You said you would tell my mother. You would tell my mother, you would talk to my mother. So talk to my mother. She's here on the phone. She's here on the phone. And so he said that she said she's not doing this with him, and she walked away, and she walked out of the class. And I heard him, he was screaming at her. He started using vulgarity. He started cursing and stuff. I'm just going to be simple with it. He started cursing at her. He was angry at that point. You're saying something, being disrespectful to my mom, and you're being disrespectful to me. There was no reason for her to even say that, and to say that in that manner. And I'm not her child. I do not work for her. So, and you don't know what I was calling him for. Now, yes, children may say that they're talking to their parents and they're talking to their friend. At the end of the day, though, when she really realized that it was me on the phone, she should have talked to me. I was fine talking to her. Okay? Especially because I knew that my son was upset, and then I heard what was going on. So I would have very well spoken to her, because what's happening and why is he this upset?
That would have been a professional thing to do.
So yes, and this is what happened yesterday. So I was on the phone with him, like I said, and then he ended up calling, being outside, and told me he was outside the school again, and that and when he said he was outside, I just told him to go home, because we don't live far from the school, and I didn't want him to go back into that atmosphere of intense chaos, and it's already been an unhealthy, unsafe environment, mentally, emotionally. Education has been created for him by that school district, we feel, since this situation back in 2021. So with him being as upset as he was when I was on the phone with him when the situation was happening, I thought it was best for him to just leave because it was just too intense. It was just too much stuff going on. And for his safety, I felt it best to have him, to send him home. And I immediately sent an email to the principal, and I sent an email to the attendance office, because at that point he's leaving school, to say that I heard what happened with the teacher and I told him to go home. I'll be there to pick up his bag later.
Okay.
When we went there, I don't know where you want me to stop. Like when we went there.
No, that's fine. We're gonna get into the videos right now. They need to hear. But so
Okay.
you knew what situation was happening, right? You were already on the phone with your son. You were able to hear some of the things that were happening. It escalated because the teacher said something that was inappropriate, right? Your son naturally got upset, okay? And then he went outside to get some air, whatever. You told him to go ahead and go home because you feared for his safety, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
You hit him
So
every single point.
Yep, okay. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to get into some video footage about that meeting that you had immediately following that point where you just left off at. So after your son, you told your son to come home or whatever, you had a meeting with the principal, right? And these are the videos that we're going to talk about, that meeting with the principal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me go ahead and see if I can share my screen again.
Yep, I picked him up, went back to the school with him to get his bag, obviously.
Okay. All right. Can you see my screen, Alisha?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like they act like about to hear.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause it. So I'm gonna start with the very first video. This one is no, actually I'm not gonna start with this one. So this one, I'm gonna go ahead and play it. But this is pretty short. This is you coming in.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like they act like about to hear. We're not about to fight.
Ask Miss Smith to come down so we can have a meeting, please.
But she wanted to speak to my mom. She said you could tell her I said that, so she's here. But she's here now. But she's here now.
I know,
But she's here now.
we have to.
All right, no,
we have to-
JJ, don't say anything.
We have to get her
here now.
permission. We just
But
have to
she's
get
here
her
now.
permission. I know, honey. Look, I'm glad you.
Now he said no. He said no. He didn't say no. We're gonna get her permission. Or we're gonna ask her. He said no.
Not right now. Not right
Why
now.
not?
Because she
Why
has
not?
to get permission.
She's here now. And she keeps talking crazy.
You're
No,
okay.
see, it's a birthday. She doesn't gotta be going through this.
Mr. Pigeon. Thank you.
She's here, bro.
Okay.
She needs to get permission to speak to a parent about an issue
Yeah.
that she initiated.
Exactly. So
She
what's
needs to
going on
get-
here? You coming into the building, right? You're walking into this now, and you're asking to speak to the teacher that the incident happened. And I think that the person at the front desk, like she was trying to handle it. You know what I mean? She was trying to be really nice about it, whatever. But I do feel like on your end that if you're going to have this type of altercation with my son at that time, right? Then the principal could have put some things in place so that you could have spoken to her to clear some things up. But that didn't happen. Correct?
Right.
Is that
Right.
it?
Mm-hmm. Now, see, when I sent the email, I was going to say I want a meeting ASAP, but I said, you know what? I'm just going to go there. I'll get his bag. Maybe I'll speak to him and I'll just ask to speak to her, which I did. Either way, she was there. We could have had a meeting.
Right. Okay, so let's go ahead to the second one. Let me pull this one up. Let me share my screen again. There we go. It took me that long to find my share screen button. Okay. Okay. Here's our next video. Is this the really short one? This is the short one. Okay.
Yeah.
So did you walking into the office?
Right. They asked us to walk into a certain conference room.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing again. Go to the next one. Share screen. Okay. That one. Who was that? The third video, Alisha? I think that was the third one.
This is the third year that you're on. Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure.
She's not going to jeopardize her job. Oh, you're the school resource officer? Hi, I'm Alisha Teruel-Conethan.
Nice to meet you, ma'am. Why did I bring you out here? Like, do something. I'm just here because I'm the school resource officer.
Are you here? Wait, stop. Shush.
All right, bro.
It's okay.
All right.
They seem nervous. That you being here as a school resource officer and the police basically is like they're nervous something's gonna happen. That's what it gives off.
No.
Well, I've had plenty of meetings with staff and administration without the school resource officer being here. So why is he here?
He is here because Ms. Smith, Giovanni, you are directed
No,
to stay
yeah,
in the
stay.
room.
Okay.
There's a plug over there.
Not directed, we're asking that he stay in the
No, I
room.
don't ask him.
No, you're gonna ask, Cause she felt it. JJ, be quiet. JJ, relax.
So you see why I have
Because
to be here.
No, because there's nothing that's gonna happen. Unfortunately, are you saying that he's a threat? Are you saying that he's a threat? Cause that's concerning. Because that's saying that people can't be frustrated.
Giovanni, you know me, so you don't have to
I
get
said you, if
estimated.
you're saying that I see why you have to be here. JJ, be quiet. JJ, be quiet for a minute because I need to explain to the officer why what he said is a little bit concerning because you're saying you see why you have to be here as though he's a threat. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he threatened to shoot a teacher with a gun, man. So.
Did I do that?
No, he didn't.
And I
When did he do that?
And there's been multiple.
When did he threaten to do that?
He did that earlier, and we have witnesses.
When, really?
Yes.
Who said
Wait a
that?
second.
Oh,
Miss
I
Smith,
think what happened is that what often happens in this school, that things are said, and then they're interpreted and or twisted to be something
let
else.
me just,
I did not say that.
Okay?
I did not say that. I did not say that.
Yes.
I did not say that. I did not say that. Why are we lying now? Why are we so
It's the school's MO to do that. So let's see what's going
Let me
on.
just tell you what's going on.
Yo.
And this started about less than an hour ago, okay? This is what Ms. Smith is reporting.
As always, they're saying things that aren't true.
Yeah.
The same thing we've been dealing with since 2021.
So let's deal with what I saw, what's on video, what many.
So then you have
people
something on
saw.
video, so I'm gonna be able to see that as well,
Yes,
right?
Yes, you'll be able to see that.
Okay, there were witnesses that.
Okay, what's going on here?
Oh, reliving this. So yeah,
Yeah.
the school resource officer was there, and you heard him say, "You see why I have to be here." Strict,
I did. I'm sure our viewers did too.
huh?
I said, I'm sure our viewers did too.
Right. Simply because my son was expressing his frustration or just was frustrated, which happens when you're being accused of something and or you're in a situation that was uncomfortable, disrespectful. I don't know what other words to use right now, but basically what happens when situations occur, right? Like a confrontation, whether it's verbal or physical, and then you're being made to be a villain. Somebody's going to be frustrated. Okay, so he needed to be there because my son was frustrated. And I'm sorry, like that's
At what point did they become a threat?
right. So we're not able to be angry. We're not able to if scream if we need to, yell. If we're frustrated, I'm not saying we should do that every single time, but at the end of the day, people are human.
Right.
So we're not able to do that. We have to at all times be quiet and just do as we're told, comply, but not express frustrations and or advocate for ourselves and say, no, that's not what happened. I'm glad he kept saying that that's not what happened.
Right. Exactly. And I kind of feel like, and this is just from my observation, I kind of feel like the resource officer, like he kind of just inserted himself into it. And I don't know if you know this or not, but there's this big thing and this big debate about whether or not they should have resource officers and security guards on school grounds. And I can't say I'm either way, but I do feel like if you decide to have them there, right, that they should go through some type of training on how to interact with students and parents and staff or whoever is there, you know, because it's a different scenario in schools than it is in the street. And they should be trained, right, how to act accordingly and everything like that. But it's obvious here that this is not taking place because of his response, or it hasn't even been considered because of his response. And the fact that he was just so free with it, to say it so outspoken, to me is alarming too as well. Because if you were here for protection, your job is also to protect my child, just like you're here to protect everybody else.
But it's not been that way. I mean, you heard me ask why is a school resource officer here, and he was just like,
Right.
because I'm the school resource officer. That was the first response. The
Mhm.
first response it wasn't until, again, a couple of seconds later, then all of a sudden he threatened to shoot a teacher. That should have been the first response if that was the situation that actually occurred.
Mhm.
And then what also, if that was the case, why did you even let us back in the building or let him in the building?
Exactly.
Shouldn't have felt he was a threat if you let him in the building and you let us stand in the hallway freely with people passing, staff,
Right.
children, everyone, and then direct us to just go into a room so we can talk.
Mhm. Wow. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Are you able to see my screen, Alisha?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
2 years ago. So I'm out, I'm back in the class, and then that's what she says. I don't know if you just told her that. Then she walks out the classroom, like, I'm not doing this with you again,
Right.
But why she told me like that? I tried to compose myself, but nah, you're not about to say that to my moms or about my mom. Like, that's crazy. That is crazy.
Okay, so stop. Now, if your wife called you in the middle of something and you went out to call, both of you, because we both professionals, right? We work, and there was an emergency, and you left for. That's none of your business. It's a family emergency. There was family business, but thank you for asking. However, if your wife, I don't know if you're married, maybe you are. Okay, if your wife calls you or your children call you, same with you, Mr. Pigeon, wife or your children call you, and you have to step away, I'm pretty sure, because we're gonna put this in a boss employee realm, your boss says to you, you need to, I don't care, they should know better than to call you. You don't know what's going on. Okay, that is your wife, that is your, if you have children, that's your child. That was unacceptable, and that was inappropriate and unnecessary. Okay, there's no excuse for it. I'm sorry, regardless of him leaving, like I said, there were other things going on. What she could have done, since we want to talk, we're going to talk about restorative practices, right? And social emotional learning. Let's get to real business. Okay, she should have said, okay, and he apologized. So it wasn't disrespectful. Okay, so then at that point, she should have said, okay, just please, if anything happens again, let me know. Show some type of respect and courtesy, not what she said in regards to your mother should know better than to call you during class and you can tell her I said it. I'm not your child. No, wait. Yes, I called him back. I called him back because he was upset. Yes, that is inappropriate. I'm not your child. JJ, wait, shush. I'm not your child. I am not your employee. I do not work for you. This is my kid, regardless of whether or not he's in school. Again, at the end of the day, that was inappropriate, unnecessary, uncalled for. There's no excuse for it. Anybody would be frustrated. I don't care if it's your boss or not. You would still be like, wait a minute, excuse me, sir, sergeant, whomever. That's my wife, that's my child. That's an emergency. There's an emergency going on. And at that point, they should respect you as a human being and a person to give you some leeway. And then come back and give you the opportunity to come back and talk to them later. And this is the same one who told him to kiss her butt in the school year, and I didn't write anything about that.
Okay. So this is you explaining, right, the scenario. You're trying to get your point across. You're trying to let them know, right, that what the teacher did was uncalled for. I think what we really do need to highlight was the fact that when your son came back, he did apologize.
Right.
Right? Yep. He apologized. And what was her response?
Her response was, I don't care. I don't care. You still left the room without my permission, or you still left the room and didn't say anything to me. I don't care. I don't care that that was your mother. And then, like I said, and I don't care that that was your mother. I think she said that twice because he had already said, my fault, I apologize. That was my mom. I don't care that that was your mom. And she should know better than to call you while you're in school and you can tell her that I said that, or I'll tell her I said that myself, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. So I do think like the two sides here, right? Like we know in classrooms, right? Shouldn't be on your phones, whatever. But I think the other side of it is that emergencies do happen. And the other part of that is, if he did come back and he apologized, obviously there's something more that's going on, right? So naturally, the response should have been to acknowledge that. And if there was an issue moving further, possibly speak to him after class, right? But instead of doing that, this is how the situation escalated so quickly, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what could have been like base level is escalated to 10.
Yep. Which is what another, just to say, what you said is verbatim. Another friend of mine who's in education as well, literally verbatim said the same thing that you said. Said, okay, he apologized. And then after class, pulled him to the side and said, hey, can we talk for a second?
Right. Because one of the things I definitely push, as an educator, as a principal, is that it is not okay to like shame students, mm-hmm. and it definitely shouldn't be a power struggle. You never win those, right? Shouldn't be a power struggle, especially when you have a child that's willing to recognize that, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but this is also going on, right? Mm-hmm. And so the fact that the teacher responsible was not able to take accountability for that is just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing because you have many students who would just straight be disrespectful, not acknowledge the fact that it probably shouldn't happen in class, right? And made a big spectacle, but this was not that type of scenario. Right. And it could have been easily solved. This is what I want our viewers to know moving forward. It could have been easily solved because I'm pretty sure, and not to make excuses for your son, right? I need everybody to know I'm not making excuses, but I need people to know that I'm pretty sure there are other students who do have phones out in class. Is it escalating though to this extreme, right? Because then this would be school-wide. Why with this child? Why with this incident, right? When it could have been easily solved.
Right. And he was right outside the classroom, stepped right out class. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, I was saying as a child, that's a slap in the face because I've already come to you and I've explained and apologized, and you still decided to be disrespectful to me in front of my classmates unnecessarily. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. No, and right. You're not making excuses. I'm not making excuses. Right. That's what I said. He apologized.
At all.
So he acknowledged the wrong. He apologized. I'm sorry, my fault. That's actually two. Okay. If y'all don't know what my fault is, some people watching don't know what my fault is. My fault is just saying I'm sorry again in a different way. Okay. Right, so twice. I'm sorry, my fault, but that was my mom.
Right. And then the other part of it is too, you're on the other end, right? So she had the opportunity to speak to you, didn't want to do that. But then you're also on the other end and you're hearing all of this. You're knowing everything that's going on, which I feel like when we get to the end of it, we could talk a little bit more about, but that needs to be acknowledged too. The fact that you were a witness to this type of treatment and that your voice still wasn't being heard and your son's voice still wasn't being heard. It's outrageous to me. Outrageous.
Right, and I didn't hear the apology, but I know that he said, my son tells me what goes on. Like, I literally called him like right after it. So yeah.
In the video, he said, I apologized. I told her, he said.
Right. And when I was on the phone, he was saying, my mom's right here. You said you wanted to talk to my mom. You said you wanted to talk to my mom. My mom's right here. Right. You can talk to her now.
Right. Which she did not do. She had the opportunity, but she did not do. Exactly. That's another step that could have been taken to diffuse the situation. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, here we go. Moving on to the next one. This is 313. Okay.
Right, so
you got it. Y'all think it's okay that somebody would tell you that they don't care, that she should know better. So then your wife or your children should know better than to call you during the school day. Is that what you're saying? It's not different. It's not different if you have an emergency or you have a family. It doesn't matter. You're at work. You have a family emergency. You have a family emergency, or you have.
Why are you trying to talk like
don't
that?
say anything.
Why are you trying to say? Why'd you just say that?
JJ,
why you say
don't
that?
even. Because they're trying to be slick. This is what they do. They try to play on your words. They try to play on your words and act like even though they know in their heart it wouldn't be okay. We're not at school. It doesn't matter if you're at school or if you're at work. If your wife or your child calls you for an emergency, that's it. Work doesn't matter unless you're literally. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm gonna stop screaming.
She don't know that.
What'd you say?
See how you're acting.
Because I'm angry.
See how you're.
I'm not screaming.
Stop trying to do the same. Stop trying to do the fake calm thing. You know what, JJ?
Hold on. This is okay for me to talk slick. I'm gonna talk slick. All right, my child. Okay, my child.
Yeah,
I'm
be-
gonna be calm down.
be
Okay,
calm.
my child.
'Cause
Okay,
no,
little broski.
They sit here and try to play the calm game.
Okay, little broski. No. So if that happens, bro, I'm not even trying to.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, that's irrelevant. And he came back and he told her, and she was disrespectful. And at the end of the day, regardless of us being upset, because that's what happens when people are frustrated, okay? The lie that you're sitting here trying to tell me that you would be okay with your boss telling you, I don't care, your wife or your child should know better than to call you when you're at work, is a bunch of garbage, and you guys know it. So I'm done. No, we don't need, there's no questions that need to be asked, because the answer you gave and the answer you, both of y'all sitting here lying, both of y'all like,
Or do
Bro,
you just,
we
do you
do.
just tell me what to
we
do?
Bro, you just
constantly,
said it
there's,
was okay, so why
Mr.
are we gonna
Pigeon,
talk to
we
you?
talk to you constantly, y'all don't listen. Y'all don't
I
listen.
talked to you one
You
time.
got this,
talked to you twice.
the resource officer here, like something's gonna happen.
Well,
like, please stop it.
And
I
you're not
was-
lying,
and y'all-
you're not
I
saying
have the
you're in
resource
face.
officer here
I did not say I'm surrendering
because
the gun.
Miss
I-
Smith is filing a report for his behavior, a police report.
Okay.
Where we're at with that?
And you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna file a report against her. And okay,
Right here.
DASA form
Okay.
too.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
right here.
For being aggressive with her mouth.
Okay.
That's not against.
Okay? Yeah, well, it's not against the law to say that that's why people get shot in the face either. Because that's a threat. It's not, you're not saying I'm going to shoot somebody in the face. You say that's why people get shot in the face, because what happens is that people do things to make people snap. As a cop, you should know that, because you don't know where people are mentally.
Okay. So this is, I feel like, is a pivotal point, right? We're getting into it, and I feel like even from the beginning, they're going to refuse to acknowledge that there was any wrongdoing on the teacher's end, right?
Mhm.
And you're trying your hardest to get that point across because it needs to be acknowledged. And I feel like even if he didn't agree, right, he could have at least acknowledged the fact that your son was upset, the fact that you were upset. So there is a legitimate concern here, right? The valid concern here, even if he didn't agree with how things worked out. And that is another pivotal point where things begin to escalate. Because now it's just like it's not him. You got the resource officer still over there chiming in. We're going back and forth.
Them
So-
both of them tag teaming and
Exactly.
I've
We're
been
going to
trying to
escalate
piggyback.
the situation instead of
Right.
try to find some possible solutions here. So talk to our viewers a little bit about what you were feeling at that time, because I'm sure there's some people out here, some parents out here that could appreciate, right, the transparency in this situation. Even if they were in a scenario this extreme, we've all been in scenarios where we were put in this room, right, with people of authority in the school, and they have our child's education in their hands. Yet,
Mhm.
obviously, there's a big issue that they're unwilling to address or
Mhm.
even make it seem like it is an issue at all. So what were you feeling at that moment when you were there?
Obviously, like I said, like frustration, just tired, to be honest. A level of tiredness, tired of being ignored, tired of being thrown to the side, tired of not being heard, or you're being listened to or heard, but you're not being listened to. They hear what you're saying, but they're disregarding it, right?
Yeah.
They're not listening. Okay. So you start to feel like you're being strangled, right? Because at that point, what you're saying is not being recognized, it's not being acknowledged. It's just consistently being disregarded. Like, I can't breathe, right? We want to say George Floyd, I can't breathe. Now you're starting to feel like you can't breathe. So you start getting frustrated and you're yelling, and people say, oh, you shouldn't yell, and code switching and stuff like that. I don't agree with the code switching. That's, other people disagree with me, that's fine. But at what point what does it take for somebody to listen to another human being in regards to their concerns, their discomfort, the stress that is being brought onto them by an environment, and then you continuously try to act like it doesn't exist? So I was feeling angry, right? I'm getting angry. I'm feeling frustrated. It's tiring, because then you feel like, what am I talking to you for? Why? And don't say come to me when you don't really listen and you don't want to listen.
Right. So, and then you're in a scenario where you have to try to keep your son calm, right? Because he's already frustrated, right? And then you have to go back and forth with the principal, right? And the officer that's there. So that's already overwhelming enough. And I feel like as an educational leader, that's one of the things that you really need to understand and take into account, right? I'm bringing this person in, the truancy officer, whoever he is here, whatever. This parent is frustrated, whatever. The very first thing that would come to my mind is, okay, how can I diffuse this situation, right? How can I diffuse this situation? How can I pivot this conversation to solutions, right? And how can we find, and I don't want to say a happy medium because I don't know if you can find one in this scenario, but at least be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my priority at that time. At least be respectful. As a leader, I've been put in scenarios that parents have been very disrespectful, right? But yet I'm still able to keep calm.
Mm-hmm.
So in this scenario, I feel like when you are working with a parent who's obviously willing to work with you, who has some valid concerns and they want to be heard or whatever, it should not be that difficult, which is my point.
Yes. Yes.
It's not like you were one of those parents who came to just disrupt the education or whatever else. I'm just going to be disrespectful or whatever else. I'm coming to you with some very valid concerns, and I'm frustrated right now because you're not hearing me out. And obviously, it's having a toll on my son, which means it's going to have a toll on his education and whatever else, his safety moving forward. And that's not what's being heard right now. You're saying it, but it's not being heard.
Right. And then, as you see and hear, they continuously keep going back to what he did and how he's acting and what he's doing and how he's reacting.
Right. And I think this next recording is where it actually gets into that, where he literally overlooks the other side of the scenario and really just focuses on your son's actions, right?
Yep. And this has been the case with this school district, I'm telling you, for years.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Same concerns, but okay.
Yeah, let's go on to the next one and see.
There's a report on file for that.
So, okay, then, but why am I getting a report?
He shouldn't even probably be telling you that. But anyway, at the end of the day, what is the foul being? Are you because of him of what other people are saying? Once again, because of word of mouth, that probably got twisted up.
Why always bring us back to the police?
Because of again what people are saying that you don't even know is true or not.
All right, what do you have to say?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just asking
Sorry,
Officer Officer Bechtel. Someone comes to you to give you information about a report, you take the report.
That's not what we're asking about. I'm not
Okay.
asking about.
I'm
Wait, just let him
going
have
step
whatever
by step.
conversation he needs to have
So
with
then
him.
when there's a report made, the police respond to the report by investigating. Okay? We're not even to the response part yet. This happened an hour ago. Okay? We're not even to that point. The person has a right to ask for a report to be taken. Okay? As a school district, with my own eyes, I saw what happened in terms of Javon's posture and treatment of Miss Smith. Okay? Was he angry because he didn't like the way she said something about you? Yes.
Well, she said it was inappropriate, but go ahead.
If I'll accept it's not common course.
It's inappropriate. We can just call it what it is. Call a spade a spade. Please, with the nonsense.
I'll call it what I want. Okay.
You could call it what you want. Don't make it true.
Okay.
But go
Okay.
ahead.
So then Javon was heated. He was yelling and screaming and swearing at her, calling her a bitch, an effing bitch. Okay, right? Correct? I heard that with my own ears. Okay.
I heard it too.
All right, so you heard it
If
too.
people curse
So,
people out when they're
okay.
mad, when they're
Right,
frustrated,
so
we're
when
not gonna act like we haven't come to
when
places and
students
seen
curse
that.
Teachers out, they get
Okay, people
suspended.
they curse people out. They curse at football players when y'all are losing the Bills game. So give me a break.
Let's do this.
Go
I'm
ahead.
just supposed to sit there and take that. I'm
Take
just supposed
what?
to sit there and let her say that about my mom.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely not.
You can
That is
respond.
saying, so you would take that from your
That's why I'm
boss?
glad I'm be my own businessman, because y'all got a dick suck your balls.
Would you take
That's
that?
dick sucking your balls.
Would
bro.
no, be quiet.
That's really like
Would
put two
that
hands on it.
be
Like,
quiet,
bro, that's dick sucking
JJ?
your balls.
Would y'all take that from your boss?
Yeah, absolutely.
What I would do.
That is a shame.
Yo, nah,
So
bro.
you're saying you're gonna allow yourself, JJ, be quiet. You're saying you're gonna allow yourself to be disrespected. You're gonna allow your boss to disrespect you and your family
Yeah.
because they feel like it, because they feel like they have a position of power. That is, I feel sorry that you would actually do that.
Yeah, okay.
But I know, but you know what? I'm gonna be honest. No, no. And that's what makes me sad. That's what, you know what? But that's okay. I mean,
I hate that my phone kept cutting off.
It's fine. It's still gonna paint a picture. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on here.
Same thing, not being heard, them trying to talk about what he did and what they heard, and now they're trying to lay out facts and create a story of how he's the issue, he was the problem, he's the nuisance. I don't even say nuisance because I feel like it's light for what's going on. How he's the aggressor, he's the problem, he's the issue, that there was not a situation done to a person, okay, regardless of whether or not they're a child, okay, they still have a voice, they still should have a voice, and that he was the problem in the whole scenario. Totally disregarded the fact what the teacher said. And you went and asked her to file a report. Did you ask him if he wanted to file a report? Did you ask him about how she was being aggressive? So yeah, well, you can't file a report about somebody being aggressive with their mouth. Okay, you can't. So then why y'all filing a report? Because what you just said was that he was cursing. He was being aggressive with his mouth. So then why is there a report being filed? What you literally said I couldn't file a report for. Okay. You said I can't file a report about her being aggressive with her mouth, but then you just talked about how he was cursing at her, which is just him being aggressive with his mouth. Again, not saying it's okay, but at the end of the day, but yet you're filing a report. She gets the opportunity and the privilege to file a report.
Right. And I think the other part of it too is that we're completely overlooking the fact that there was an emergency, and that's the reason why you did call.
Right.
But to make it seem like if the shoe had been on the other foot, right, that would have been okay. Like you would have literally just ignored the call or handled it a different way, despite the fact that there's an issue that needs your attention right away. I highly doubt that would have been out. So again, making it seem like you're at fault for prioritizing, right? Or your son's at fault for prioritizing his mom is crazy. And I could tell.
Thanks for clarifying that. Because go ahead. I'm sorry. Thanks for clarifying. No, that's it. Thanks for clarifying that, because yes, that's true. The fact that they both, you know, you're lying. You know, you're lying.
Yeah. And I can really see how frustrated your son is at this point. Like, really? You know what I mean? And I want people to really not just look past like the way that he says it and really break it apart to say what it is. So now I'm frustrated that you're not even going to acknowledge the fact that it was an issue, that this teacher doesn't even want to consider the fact that there was an emergency on my mom's end. And you're going to fault me, right, for taking the call and making my mother a priority because of whatever reason. So regardless if they felt that, you know, you were a priority or whatever, in your mind, you have to know. When you're talking about your child and the mother, it's a priority. She's a priority. And so to overlook that is even more crazy to me. Because now we're just escalating it even more. And there's plenty of points where it could have been de-escalated. But they kind of like feed into it and make it worse than what it is.
Yes.
And then on your son's behalf, right, considering his age, right, I don't think it would have been a different reaction, you know, across the board, because I'm overly frustrated at this point. You're not acknowledging my feelings, and now you're trying to make it seem like my mom's not a priority. And we're really going to go back and forth about this? Like, how? When I know if the shoe had been on the other foot, it would have been a different scenario. But you're not sticking to your guns anyway to make it seem like that's not the case.
Right, which again has been the MO with the school in this situation. And I know I chuckled about how he said it, but it's a kid being a kid at that point.
It's a kid being a kid at the end of the day. And I'm going to be completely honest with you here. I've heard some crazy things come out of kids' mouths, but you know, the educator in me, the mom in me understands that when you're frustrated, you say things. But at the same time, it's my job, I feel like, to try to do whatever I can to de-escalate the situation. You know, I'm not going to add fuel to the fire, which is literally what's happening right here. And I feel like you really need to pay attention to this, because that's the way that they like to point the finger. Like, oh, now he's aggressive, you know, he's this, he's that, or whatever, but you're still not acknowledging. You're poking the bear right now. Like, this is intentional right now. We're not going to acknowledge that, though. We're going to take it, so we're just going to hold him accountable for his actions.
And now they're
Huh?
all, and now they're all out of control. The mother and the son are loud and out of control, and they try to sit there and be really calm. But which I guess that's why people say you don't want to play into it. But at that point, I'm not playing into anything. I'm just going to be human, and I don't really care about, again, how they are going to try to perceive me, because I think that's where we go wrong sometimes as people, and Black people and parents, okay, where we are too concerned about how they are going to perceive us. The issue is not how what stories they're going to make up in regards to how we are reacting to a situation, rightfully so. The issue is really that we're saying something at all.
Yeah, it really
That's
is.
where it starts.
Right. Like the audacity for you to even question, my authority or the teacher's actions or anything like that. And that's another big thing, right? Because I feel like at the end of the day, there's always two sides to a story, two sides. And when you're in a position to make those types of decisions, it is your job to do those investigations before you come to a conclusion. You need to thoroughly look into both sides of the scenario and whatever else evidence that you have. But it's clear to me in this scenario, like a decision has already been made, and that's the reason why it's being escalated instead of the scenario being de-escalated. And this is the point, like you said, where they get to, the angry Black woman or the angry parent or whatever, look at how they behave or whatever, But at the same time, we have to take time out to acknowledge the wrongdoing on their end. The fact that they had multiple opportunities to de-escalate the situation, but not even that if you want to reach further. The fact that as a leader, you have the opportunity to implement proactive support to prevent this scenario from even happening in the first place. Right. We're not ready for that conversation yet. Because it's easier to just suspend kids.
And like you said, already made the decision. So
it was already made. It was made way before you even came back to school. It was made. They'd already had conversations or whatever before you got there. Trust me, I've been in those scenarios before. It's already done. It's already done. And that is the reason why I think it's so blatantly obvious, because he can't hide it because of his responses and his attitude and his posture and everything else that's going on in his videos, that the decision was already made ahead of time. And that's why your voice was not being heard in this scenario.
Which also technically means my rights were violated, because you didn't even give me an opportunity. You had already made up your mind and made a decision prior to me even coming there and having a conversation. And had you again acknowledged it, it could have de-escalated. We could have had a conversation. We could have had what'd you say? I'm sorry.
He could have easily.
Yes, and we could have a conversation. Could have calmed down and decided, okay, how are we moving forward, and being again proactive. Just because somebody's a teacher, that doesn't mean that they're not held accountable. Just because they're someone of authority doesn't mean they don't get held accountable, right? Because we're quick to try to go to priests if we want to talk about positions of authority, right? And people may get funny with it, but at the end of the day, you want to take certain people and put them at a certain standard. But then now what? Because we're in school, we're not going to have a certain standard, even though the school code of conduct said we're supposed to be moving and acting according to that standard in the school code of conduct in terms of mutual respect. That wasn't mutual respect that you said that to him about his mother, and that you just said that and that you did that to him in front of in the class, like you said initially, in general. But again, I'm sorry.
I said that was very demeaning to do that.
Yes. And this has been another problem that I've been talking about. We've been talking about for years. The belittling and the demeaning of kids in the classroom, in front of students, by teachers and staff in this school district.
And I do feel like the reaction of your son, if he was in positions in the school to regularly have opportunities to voice his opinion and have say, you know what I mean? And have opportunities to have open discussions and things like that, maybe his reaction would be different. Maybe the way that he dealt with it could have been different. But because that's not taking place and you're constantly putting me in the same position, you're not solving the issue. You're trying to put a Band-Aid on it by suspending me or whatever else. It's going to continue to be an issue. And that's across the board. That is across the board.
We're not going to listen. We're not going to look to move proactively, like you said, to try to move in a positive manner. We're just going to push him out, push him out, push him out.
Push him out.
So with the issue, we're going to push him out. Not going to listen.
Okay, we're on our last video.
Oh, I had to take an emergency call. My mom's on the phone. Okay. Well, tell your mom not to call you when you're in my class.
That's not what she said, bro.
I'm giving you
No, that's
I'm
not
not
what
saying
she
that's what she
said,
said.
bro.
I'm giving you an example, Javon.
The same
Example.
witnesses that y'all
I've
spoke to,
probably
I know
said
I have
that-
the right to speak
I've
to them as
prob-
well.
I've probably said that to students in my career 300 times. Directly when, because kids lie all the time too about their mom being on the phone. Every time I ask someone, hey, get off the phone, hey, it's my mom. And I'll say, tell your mom to get off the phone. Hundreds of times, okay? That's a common response from teachers.
So then
It's
she
not
should have
meant to be.
apologized. I'm sorry, let me get your thought out. Let me let you get your
Yeah,
thought out.
so, so I should have apologized 300 times to tell moms not to call their
You're
children
making an
from the
excuse
phone.
for her, but go ahead.
Okay, so if that, so it is what it is. We have differences of opinion about a teacher's response regarding kind of speaking to and at a parent on the phone or to the child. Hey, don't call your child in class, that type of thing. If it's an emergency, whatever. That made Javon mad, okay? And then he gets verbally vulgar with a teacher, okay? So when Javon's angry because a teacher didn't handle something the way you like or he likes, he can just rip off on them. Is that what you're telling me? It's game over. Javon's angry. I can F-bomb the crap out of the teacher.
No teacher's ever told.
I'm saying, is it okay for her to say what she said? And y'all are trying to tell me that it was, and that's a problem in itself. Y'all aren't even acknowledging that what she said was incorrect. That her whole tone and the stuff that she said was out of order.
Like that. But what she said about my mom's is crazy. And it's her birthday. I
She-
don't want her. Come on, bro.
It's your birthday?
But she said, yeah, she should, but thank you.
come
She
on,
shouldn't,
bro,
she
like,
should, what she
so-
said, but see, this is what we consistently and constantly go back to. At the end of the day, people do things and there are reactions to stuff that people do. So yes, you can choose, okay, am I gonna react this way? Am I not gonna react this way? At the end of the day, what tends to happen and what's continuing to happen in this school is that y'all do not acknowledge that she was out of order. You do not say that was out of order. Y'all both tried to sit here and tell me that what she said and how she said it was okay. I am not her child, okay? I can call him whenever I feel like it, especially if we have stuff going on. And at that point, when he came back in and said, my fault, sorry, there should have been no further discussion. She should have gone back to teaching and it would have been no problem. You never acknowledge when the teacher's out of order. You continuously try to circle back to the fact that the child should have maintained themselves, and not that the teacher should have been conducting themselves in a certain manner, being that they're at work and should be a professional.
And I don't know why that they was holding me back. Like they're all weak as hell. If I wanted to, I could have.
Because you yelling and
But
screaming.
I would have never. I'm not.
But that doesn't even matter. The issue is that the fact that the lady was out of order.
When you yelling and screaming.
Don't matter. I'm not laying my
at a
hands on a
it
female.
matters to us, because we don't know. We don't know. I know you,
Okay.
I don't think you would, but when you're loud.
Thank you. You know him and you
yelling,
don't think he
and
would. Say that
swearing.
again. Can you repeat that? You know him and you don't think he would.
Javon. I don't think he would hit a female. But
Right.
you're loud and screaming and yelling and swearing at a female. We're going to intervene because you weren't backing up.
That's fine to intervene to try to get people to calm down. I don't have an issue with that.
You were directed into the dean's office. You left out. You'll see on the video.
Well, what did I say? And what did I say to her? What did I say to her? I said, you can see. I said, okay.
I
you can
heard
see my
you-
mom's
what
there.
I heard
Then I
you-
said, I said, okay, my mom right here. You can talk to my mom. What's up? You can talk to my mom. She right here. Was I like, oh, I'm gonna beat you out? Did I say
I
all
didn't
that?
hear everything in the classroom. I heard most of what happened outside the classroom. I
And
was
she,
down
and
at
she
the end
always
of the hall.
walking to them. Like, I'm like, okay, you can talk to my mom's then. Then she gonna walk outside the class. Like you wanted to say that to my mom. Why you walking out the class? I thought you had something to say to my mom. She's on the
Okay.
phone right now.
So we'll get all of that
Excuse me.
information.
And I did hear that because I was literally on the phone and he was
Yeah.
like, my mother's on the phone right now. My mother's on the phone right now.
Yeah.
And she was not choosing to speak to me and she wasn't repeating what she said
Yeah.
because why would she do that? Because she knows that what she said was inappropriate.
Well, she's also teaching a class.
Well, she took enough time out of class to decide to say that I, as a parent, should know better than to call my child, and she can tell me that herself.
And she walked
You
out the
to go
class to
get
get
someone
yours.
to get
So
you out of the class.
she took enough time out of class to decide to come out her face
So why she
crazy.
walk all the way down there?
All right,
with her
so-
We're
phone?
gonna not ignore that, Mr. Pigeon.
Here's the bottom line right now.
She didn't
for
care
right
enough
now.
about the class to decide she didn't want to talk snappy.
So,
This
from
is a
what I
Friday,
saw
bro.
with
I'm trying
my
to just
own
go
two
home and get
eyes
some good
and what
eats,
I've
bro.
seen on the video,
Right.
this is a 5-day out of school suspension.
Okay, so this is what's supposed to happen.
Right.
What's supposed to happen is we're supposed to get a letter regarding you thinking about, shush, be quiet. JJ, be quiet.
I know the events.
No, well, first of all, you're not even following protocol, because what's supposed to happen is we're supposed to get a letter stating that you are thinking about suspending him.
Okay.
Also, we are supposed
It's
to,
Friday.
I don't
You're
care,
thinking about
I don't.
suspending him.
No, I said a letter. It's supposed to be handwritten, and also, we have the right to speak against any witnesses that are speaking against my son before the suspension occurs. I want that first.
Okay.
I want that first. So until I get the
We'll
written
do
letter,
that. Okay, you'll get the
and I
written
get the
letter,
meeting, the in-person
it'll be
meeting
emailed
with
to
Miss
you.
Smith and whomever else we want that are witnesses speaking against him, then at that point, we can decide how it goes.
Okay, so we'll set that.
Follow protocol, because that's another thing y'all don't do here.
I'm just trying to give you fair warning from what I saw with my own eyes. And you can have the same conversation and you can yell at Miss Smith and all
And
that
no, I'm
stuff.
writing a formal complaint about her too, and several.
Okay.
So all the
You do what
paperwork's
you-
about
you
to
do-
come in.
You do what you gotta do.
Make sure I
we'll
get my
set up-
paperwork, the
I'll
proper
get your
paperwork for the way
paperwork.
it's supposed to be done.
We should probably do it first thing Monday.
And I'm asking that y'all do not deny me my rights in terms of what I just asked for with speaking to any witnesses who are speaking against my son.
Okay.
Yeah, who are the witnesses, by the way?
The witness is currently me and Miss Kibler.
And there's
Miss
students there
Smith.
too.
Right.
There were students in class.
Yep.
No, but the way they are.
No, we know. I just want them to say the stuff to try to act like retaliation. Say the jargon that goes along. I want there was in front of class. There was a bunch of students. So he has witnesses that were there to speak on his behalf as well.
Okay. You're gonna be calling witnesses? Giovanni?
Don't ask him any questions. Now it's just the
Let me
parents,
get
right?
you the
It's just
letter.
us, the
Let me
adults.
get you the letter that will be saying I'm considering suspending you and
Her
inviting you
name's
to an
Catherine, though, right? I'm
informal
just asking. Her
conference.
name's Catherine. I'm not calling her Miss Smith no more. Her name's Catherine Smith, right? Her name's Catherine.
Why don't you just quit
Her
my
name's
hearing,
Catherine.
Giovanni?
Her name's Catherine, right? I'm just asking. Her name's Catherine.
I don't know what her first name is.
Yes, you
I
do.
want to, and she's
Why
to
do
be
you want to
here.
know her first name?
It's
I'm
irrelevant.
just curious.
I'm
Why
not,
do you want to know
I'm
her
not
first
calling her
name?
Miss Smith no more. Her name is Catherine now. Whenever I see her, I'm gonna say, "Hey, Catherine." That's what I'm gonna say. That's why. That's why. That's why. That's
What'd
why.
you
What
say?
you trying to say? I'm gonna do something?
Great.
Like,
Wait,
Don't even entertain the side talk. Anyway, at the end of the day, please
Quit
just.
while you're ahead.
Send the paperwork, and I want to speak to Miss Smith because I have a right to.
Yeah. you have
So
a right
that
to.
whole trying to keep her back at bay, no, I want to have a meeting with her because she already got her off with the little kiss my butt nonsense. Okay, again, inappropriate. This is your staff talking to kids, talk like they're kids. But you want kids to act professionally, and your staff isn't even acting professional. That's crazy to me. Well, you know how it goes anyway, but at the end of the day, once again, their staff and staff can be unprofessional as they want.
I guarantee the kid was right. You would do that. You would be asking them questions. You would want them to be making up all this. They would have been here.
What happened? What's going on? Anything happening at home?
I guarantee you.
Anything going on? That's social emotional learning, right?
We can go, bro.
I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, you don't know about SEL and you're a principal for 16, 17 years? Okay, so what are you talking about?
I guarantee you.
I'm talking about, it's about what I'm saying.
You would bring.
You're guaranteeing,
guarantee
what
you.
you're saying, you're
I guarantee you.
guaranteeing
I
that
seen it
if
happen,
this
that's
was a
why.
white child,
Yeah.
you're guaranteeing
Miss
what my
Smith would have been here,
actions would
and you guys would have been trying to have
Javon,
them
you're
reconcile.
guaranteeing what
You
my
guys would have been
actions would
having to try them reconcile.
Don't even say, because
You
he's
think
gonna
of a
deny it.
white
They're gonna deny it
man
anyway. They're gonna deny it anyway, JJ.
F and B.
They're gonna deny it anyway. And like I said, they would be trying to find out, which we know, like they did with the Banana Split Club, if they're acting out, no, because something might be going on at home. I've been here long enough. This is what I've been trying to tell y'all. Been here long enough, seen enough. Yeah. So at the end of the day, yes, they'll probably be trying to find out and want to know anything going on, what's happening, is there stuff happening at home, are you okay? We know the deal. Y'all do that.
Y'all dead ass treating me like a criminal with the police officer here, bro.
Well,
You think I'm a
they're
criminal?
claiming now, there's claims that you said you were going to shoot somebody in the face.
I just pulled it was in my head.
All we're doing is saying that people snap. Nobody said, and I know my child's not violent and wouldn't do anything like that. Thank God he's not, okay? But what we're saying, and y'all witnessed this, again, Columbine, where people getting poked and prodded and bullied, and then tragedy happens, but you have people like us who are vocally and verbally expressing our frustration, and it gets ignored and it gets put to the side, and instead you try to label us as problems, okay? And then you have tragedy, unfortunately, and then when you have tragedy, then you want to react instead of being proactive. This is the same conversation I've been having with the school district for years. And then, no, and you're saying, but you're saying, I feel like in a way,
I don't agree with anything you say.
you don't have to agree. You don't have to agree. That doesn't mean that it's not true. That doesn't mean it's not fact.
It doesn't mean.
It doesn't mean it's not
Because
fact.
it comes out of your mouth, it doesn't mean it's true.
No, it's fact because I've had it, experienced it,
It's
and
not
other
fact.
people have experienced as
I've
well.
experienced it too.
And it's not fact that those kids were bullied at Columbine.
What?
It wasn't fact that they were bullied.
Outside the classroom.
Y'all aren't even, you
I thought
don't,
you were
y'all,
talking about Amherst.
I'm talking, oh my gosh. I might as well talk to the window. This is what I'm talking about. Like, this is
All right,
crazy.
we're done then.
Yes, because we have to be. Just please give me
Why
the
y'all talking about it
paperwork.
like I'm a criminal?
I don't think you're a criminal.
Right, bro,
I think
like-
someone filed a report. That's it.
So now you have a report for what?
Yeah.
Filing a report for
I
what?
have to-
Bring
yeah,
the whole
let me
Amherst-
look
bring the
at my
whole Amherst
schedule.
Police
Police have to be
Department.
here.
I gotta
Bring
look
the
at
whole
my
Amherst
Police have to
schedule.
be here.
Department.
So the police have to be
He's
here.
here all the time. He's
For a
right in the
conversation where people give y'all information, and instead of y'all listening to what they're saying, y'all try to act like they're the threat and they're the problem. Instead of listening to the people, then the people that don't talk and who are stuck
We've
in
been
the
listening
silence
for
are the ones who
45
come
minutes.
here and shoot schools up and do things like that. Then you want to react, but you don't want to listen to the people who are actually being vocal about and verbal about the issues. You shake your head calm, but then, like I said, when stuff happens, okay, then you want to sit here and people be like, well, they were telling you and they were telling you and they were saying something, okay, and then there's other people who suffer in silence, and then they're the one, and then they come and they do something. Learn stuff to start being proactive.
Take care.
JJ, don't say nothing else to them. Make sure I get my paperwork, Mr. Pigeon, please, because I know my rights.
Yeah.
Can I take a breath after that?
Yeah, you really have to. So I was trying to take notes just so I can digest it all, because it's very hard, as a parent to watch this and not get upset. And it's very hard as someone in education to watch this and not get upset, because it's so blatant and in your face. There's so many things that you can pull from this, and you don't want to believe that things like this happen, right, Alisha? But it does. This is the reality of the situation. I really commend you for coming forward to talk about this and your transparency, because this is real life.
Mm-hmm.
This is a real life event. We're just not talking about a case scenario here. No,
Right.
This isn't a case study. This is what actually happened. So let's go ahead. Let's just try to break this apart really quickly. I wrote down a couple quotes from the video because I feel like it says a lot. But I want to really talk about what your son was saying, right? And I know you had talked about before when he was trying to talk and you said you cut him off, and you probably should have let him say what he had to say, because it's very apparent that this isn't the first scenario, right? Thinking about what he said. And it's very apparent that he 100% understands what's happening and how it should happen. So when he made the comment, he said, if this had been a white child, right, we would be in a position to reconcile. This officer wouldn't even be here.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear him say that, it's so eye-opening, because this is a child, right? Let's just say what it is. This is a baby. This is a child. So the people in authority here that are in charge of his education, in charge of his well-being, and whatever, are not even making these connections. In fact, they're going really hard at trying to invalidate these connections that he's making. And he's saying it and not being heard. There's another point where he says, I've been listening to you for 45 minutes. Right, you have, but you didn't hear me. You listened to me for 45 minutes, but you didn't hear anything that I said.
Yep.
You didn't hear anything that I said. You didn't hear the concerns of my child. You didn't hear any of that. You listened. So I have off record, right? Not off record, but just off topic. I have a pet peeve, right? And it is to listen to understand, not just to respond. And that's what's happening here.
Yep.
He's listening to respond. So that means he's not actually hearing you.
Correct.
The other part of it is too, when he said, I don't think Javon will put his hands on a female. And we'll circle back to that because I want you to get into what happened since this video, right? Since you had this meeting, right? So he did say that. And you said, I want you to say that again, right? I don't think Javon will put his hands on a female. Okay. So now you're acknowledging the fact that you know him and that probably wouldn't happen, yet you still have this officer here.
Yep.
So if he wouldn't put his hands on a female, you think he would put his hands on you? Because why is the officer here? That's the other part about it. And then the other thing when he said, oh, she was teaching the class, she couldn't listen to her. And you said, but she had time to basically, right, be disrespectful. She took time out of her teaching to be disrespectful. And we talked about this because what she could have done, okay, Javon, I'm going to talk to you after class. But she didn't do that. She chose to disrespect him and in essence, disrespect you in front of the entire classroom. Because you talked about how they were witnesses, the whole class was there, whatever. He talked about how he heard some of it. You talked about how you were there too. So we all know she took time out, right, to do that. But now all of a sudden, she's using her time to teach.
Right.
Again, we're shifting the accountability. We're not acknowledging the fact that, okay, she did have a concerned parent on the phone who was willing to speak to her, but she decided not to talk.
Right.
And there's just so many elements here, right? And so when we talk about the discipline aspect too, when your son said what's supposed to happen versus what actually happened, still fell on deaf ears. Still fell on deaf ears. And then when he finally got there, he said, I'm going to end this meeting. This meeting is over. We're ending it now.
Right.
You still haven't solved anything, right? You haven't solved anything, but I'm going to end this meeting. The fact that he said, I'm just going to give you fair warning, we're considering a 5-day suspension. How'd you even come up with that number? You didn't even hear his side. He wasn't even there. He walked out of school. He wasn't there to tell his side. But you already had that number in your head before I even came to meet with you as a respectful parent, which is even more diminishing.
Yep.
Because you can't deny that fact here in this video. Can't nobody deny that fact. If you already came out with a number, you already considered everything you wanted to consider. And obviously his side of it was not being considered because he wasn't even there to tell his side.
Right.
Which is crazier. Do you feel like as a parent, when you said, I need to have that in writing, I should have the opportunity, right, to question witnesses, to be a part of this decision-making processes, right? How do you think he took that when you said that to him? Do you think he was expecting that?
No, I don't think so. I want to say no. I know I had conversations with him before about I've been through the process. I know what needs to be done, but I guess he felt that I was just talking. I have no clue. Like, I'm not saying I have no clue about whether or not he expected me to say that. I don't think he expected me to say that. I just think I don't think he really thought that I knew how things were, the process and how things were supposed to be done.
Right. And let's talk about proper protocol, right? And let's just piggyback on what your son said. If this had been another student, one who's not of color, it would have played out differently, right? It would have gone very differently. Now, this is the major thing right here because I don't think parents pay enough attention to this, right? If he did that so easily and you didn't know your rights, it would have just been a 5-day suspension, no question. Wouldn't have been questioned at all. The fact that you didn't hear my son's side, the fact that you came to this meeting with a number already in your mind, the fact that you've already talked to the teacher and you didn't consider any other things, right, is a major problem right here. And I'm wondering how many other parents have been in these scenarios and presented with these scenarios and not knowing their rights. How many parents didn't know, okay, that's proper protocol. I should be a part of that, right? I have the right to also talk to witnesses. I have the right to know what that video footage looks like and everything. But you've already looked at the footage already and came up with a number?
Right. Wow. And I haven't seen the footage yet, and they have said that I can see the footage, which I am privy to because it involves my son.
Exactly. So
and people don't know that either.
Alisha, what are you thinking right now?
Well, if you also heard my son was saying, and I did stop him, like you said, like you mentioned, that I stopped him, and what he was saying is that he already knows the process. which is again a process that isn't really a real due process and isn't a real consideration in regards to the other party outside of the school personnel. Okay, where he said it's 5 days, and my son said, nope, I know how this goes, and I cut him off. And what he was saying, and I'm sure he'll reiterate when we talk again, is it's a 5-day, you're saying it's a 5-day suspension, and then you're going to escalate it. You're going to escalate it to a superintendent's hearing.
Kind of like he's buying time, right? I'm gonna put him on his 5-day for right now. Let me get some more time so I can put some other things in place. Present him with something else differently, because I'm not able to do it right now. But within those 5 days, I could definitely build a different case and extend it.
And that's what they did last time in 2021, like in 8th grade. It was supposed to be a 5-day suspension, and then they quickly escalated it to a superintendent's hearing and tried to use 2 verbal altercations, both which involved, again, racial bullying and slurring, okay, with students, but they didn't document that part. They just documented that my son reacted. So the children who speak up against this stuff, our children, our Black and brown children, okay, children of color, right? Our children, when they speak up about it, it doesn't get documented, it doesn't get written down. They continuously pose them and try to show them as being the issue and the problem. They're the problem. They're the ones who are being aggressive. They're the ones who are acting out of order. Not that there are issues that are at hand that need to be addressed to help, again, prevent situations. Being proactive.
It's easier to say that a single child is a problem than acknowledging that it is a school-wide issue. That's basically the essence of this scenario right here. That's it. That's the way out. That's the easiest thing to do, because you're the problem, not my school, not my leadership, not my teachers, right? So therefore, I don't need to do any work on my end. But your son should take this suspension because he's the problem. That's the easiest thing to do in these types of scenarios. And that's why it's so important to know your rights as a parent. I'm happy you did point that out. The other thing that I want to talk about on here is when he
I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Was just the experience that when he was again trying to negate what we were saying in regards to what we are experiencing and have been experiencing, continuously negating it. That's not you. I'm denying everything. I will have to look at the video again. I'm denying everything that you're saying. Everything that you're saying.
Alisha, he said, and it's funny you said that. I wrote it down. He said, because it comes out of your mouth, that doesn't mean that it's true.
Right.
He said that in the video. Because it comes out of your mouth, that doesn't mean that it's true. Which is even more validation to show that he did not listen to anything that you said. Like at all. It didn't even matter. It did not even matter. It didn't. I can't imagine, like I feel like, especially being a Black person in leadership positions, right? If I had said something like that to a parent, like there would have been repercussions. Like I would have been called in the office. We need to have a conversation about this because that's not okay, right? That's what would have happened if I had said something like that to a parent. But the fact that he felt comfortable with saying that, it's like, wow.
And I said, I'm experiencing it.
Right.
I'm experiencing it. My son said, I have been witness to it. I've seen that white peers, my children that aren't like me, that my white peers or whatever counterparts, they get that opportunity to be able to reconcile a situation. They are not immediately disciplined and kicked out of school. They are not given this type of punishment. This type of excessive punishment. They are given a right to have a voice, to speak.
Because there's strength in numbers. And that's the one thing we don't always have working on our side. And that's the one thing that you and I definitely can work together, and other educators and other parents work together to try to change, because somewhere things have to change. We need significant changes to happen in this broken educational system to make sure that our kids get the support that they need to be successful, period. It has to happen. If we don't decide, right, to take a stand, to go a little bit of an extra mile to read that code of conduct, to go a little bit of the extra mile to find that advocate to go with you when you have these meetings or whatever, to go a little bit extra mile to challenge what's being told to you, go the extra mile to make sure that your child's voice is heard, it's going to continue to happen, and it's going to continue to be a problem. It's not going to change. And that's how we're at this point right now. That's how we're at this point. We got to get other people on board. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen one more time. We got a couple more slides. Let me just check. I wanna see if there's any Q&A so far. And if we don't get to it, like I said before, if we don't get to it right now, we can always go back when you and I log off, Alisha, and respond to the comments and everything like that. And we'll definitely share and continually come back to it and see where we are. So this next slide, when I share my screen, is just going over what parent advocacy is and what it isn't. Okay, so I'm not gonna make it bigger, I'm just gonna go over it. So parent advocacy, what it is you voicing your concerns, right? Is you addressing the concerns, is you being involved in addressing the concerns with teachers, school administrators, healthcare providers, or any other relevant individuals or organizations, okay? It is you seeking information and resources. This may include you researching educational rights, accessing support services, or connecting with advocacy organizations, and we talked a little bit about that, going that extra mile. Collaborating with professionals, right? What you were willing to do, Alisha. This collaboration involves open communication, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to the child's best interest, all right? And that needs to be on both sides. So we're not saying it to say that everything falls on the side of the organization. It also falls on the side of the parent as well. Everybody has to put in work here as a partnership. And then navigating systems and processes. This may involve advocating for policy changes, funding allocations, or systematic reforms to improve the lives of all children. So what that means is when you advocate for your child, you're essentially advocating for all children. You're making a point of having your voice heard so that if another scenario comes up with another child, okay, it can be addressed as well. So what parent advocacy is not? Hostility or aggression. So advocacy efforts should be conducted with respect, professionalism, and a focus on constructive communication, and that is on both ends, right? Everybody has to be on board with that. So it is not the sole responsibility of parents. I talked about that as well. It's also the responsibility of educational organizations to make sure that they have these supports in place, okay? Schools, healthcare providers, and communities have a shared responsibility to support children's well-being and to ensure their needs are met. It is not replacement for professional expertise. So we're not saying that teachers don't know what it is that they're supposed to be doing or teaching or anything like that, okay? While parents advocate for their children's needs and rights, it is important to recognize and respect the expertise of and professional judgment of individuals who provide services and support to children. And it is not exclusivity, okay? Parent advocacy should not be exclusive to privileged or well-informed parents, okay? Every parent has the right and responsibility to advocate for their child regardless of their background, education level, or social economic status. All right. So now we're going to go here. Let me move down. Okay. And this is just, if you're interested, this Q&R code here. I have a service where I provide parent advocacy power hour. It's just ways that you can get in contact with me here on Facebook, on Instagram, and my email. I don't know why it's shortened like that, but at the end it says PA and Associates. This is PA and Associates LLC, and this is info@PAandassociates.com. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here because I want to get some final thoughts from Alisha. All right, Alisha, any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience before we end this live? And I want them to know that we're going to come back, right? After you, definitely talk about what's happened since you had this meeting in the school. Go ahead and talk about that, and then I'll finish up.
Okay,
So
and I was gonna add that with everything that you've seen, I don't even remember if I told you, I had actually called out. He had taken some days off of school for mental, like just taking a break, mental. You know, we all get stressed. Take a mental day. We all have that right, self-care, if you want to call it that, mental break because of the environment in the school district. So so y'all are already aware that he's uncomfortable due to certain situations that are going on with the school district and his family. And so to not even again take consideration there, to have to have this situation be what it is. Since then, but since yesterday, so again, it's just not being cognitive per se, or not being respectful enough to even, as you saw, to take into consideration and I'm just another human being. That since yesterday, because it's literally happened yesterday, March 1st. We got the letter for the suspension. The teacher is now claiming that my son grabbed her, put his hands on her, and threatened to, and she said that he's not to put his hands on her. How dare he? Don't you take your hands off of me. So now she's alleging that he aggressively assaulted her, that he assaulted her, right? Put his hands on her. And that he also threatened to pull out a gun and shoot her. So now we're bringing criminal charges up against my child.
And none of these, I just want to be clear, none of these allegations were brought up during that meeting. They didn't mention anything about him putting his hands on her or anything about him threatening her with a firearm or anything to that effect. Nothing like that was brought up, right?
Right. Well, the school resource officer, after 3 times me asking in the beginning when those other meetings, other videos, I said, why are you here? And he was just like, first answer was, I'm the school resource officer. I guess that was, I'm a person of position. I don't really know what that response even really meant.
Right.
And why are you here? Well, see, he's frustrated, trying to make it seem like, again, he's a threat. And then, well, he threatened to shoot somebody or shoot. And so then I was just like, really? Okay. Like, again, I was on the phone.
Right. But when the principal, though, said that she was filing a report, he didn't mention that, did he?
Right.
Or did I miss that?
No, he didn't mention that at all. He said he heard from outside. He's claiming he didn't hear what was said inside, but I was on the phone when they were inside. I was on the phone with him. So I was a witness because I was technically listening on the call. I was on the call. I was there hearing what was going on. So I was present. I wasn't physically present, but I was present because I was on the phone. I was there hearing what was going on. Okay. Nothing like that was said. And then he didn't mention it when he was talking. He just said, I heard you cursing and I heard you saying vulgarities and things like that.
Because I don't think, Alisha, he would say, I don't think Javon will put his hands on a female if that had been brought up. If that had been brought up prior, it most likely would have been a hearing and not just a 5-day suspension, right? So why do you believe now it's being brought up and put into this paperwork as an allegation on the teacher's behalf? What do you think prompted that?
The fact that I actually knew my rights on some level, and I was advocating for my kid. I'm advocating for my kid, and then I knew my rights. I knew the protocol. And so, and I mean, again, my son's story didn't change. You understand, which is that in itself is the same thing. Just again, trying to build a case, because you have to build a case to try to prove that you're legitimate in your decision, right? That you're right in your decision. So I have to now add extra layers, even if they're untrue, to try to make it seem like what I'm doing and the disciplinary action that I'm giving is appropriate, and that the child, once again, is a problem. And so now it's escalating. They said it didn't say that. I didn't say it's escalating yet, but that's what my son was leading to. Like I said, when I cut him off, that I know how this goes. You say it's a 5-day suspension, and then you escalate it to a superintendent's hearing because he's already been through that, and that's what they say. And again, it's his word against the teacher's word. And the teacher's word is what's valid, not the child. That doesn't matter. And now, obviously, and not the parent who was present on the phone. So it doesn't matter what a parent says or what a child says. It's what the school says. It's what the person of authority is claiming is a situation.
Who have you reached out beyond? Because you said this wasn't the first incident, right? Who have you reached out beyond the principal of the school? Who have you reached out to?
Today, from yesterday, or
overall, since these scenarios have been happening?
Well, it happened so quickly in 8th grade. Like, his dad and I didn't even know what a superintendent's hearing was. Like, I never knew it. I just read the paper. I'm like, this seems like this is something serious. It looks like I might need a lawyer. You understand what I'm saying? Like, right. So we didn't reach out to the superintendent because we didn't even know who he was. We didn't know what was going on. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have an opportunity to reach out to anyone. I've now reached out to outside sources. Obviously, like you being one of them, other I'll say I've also talked to other educators even back then. Those who were principals from the West Coast to East Coast, down south, and we have family, his dad and I have family and friends who are in the education system, from staff to administration. These are all conversations we've actually had with them. So it's not like we're not privy to information. But then with the superintendent's hearing, I went into researching stuff myself, because I'm like, there's no way that this can be okay, that a child has a fight and it's his first physical altercation and it gets escalated to a superintendent's hearing. There were no weapons or anything involved. You understand? And he's never really had any issues prior. But unfortunately, in terms of the school district, I haven't reached out to anybody because they don't listen. You know, when I wrote those DASA forms back when he was in not elementary, I'm sorry, in middle school, they didn't have the DASA coordinators there, which was confusing to me, because why are you a DASA coordinator if you're not there? And for the, again, DASA, Dignity for All Students Act, for those who may not know. If your child, you can write a complaint, whether it's for discrimination, whether it's age, race. There's basically any situation that kind of occurs in school that you feel is deemed out of control or unnecessary, just unacceptable. But they ended up having their attorney there because we had already appealed the decision with the superintendent's hearing, which the superintendent said that he didn't expect that to be done because parents don't do that. And I think that circles back to what we said about parents not saying anything, just feeling like this is what the school said and this is what they're saying. And so we have to just accept it. And also us thinking, and I'm saying us as Black parents and parents of color, like, okay, well, just go to school and you know that they're going to do things anyway. So just go to school and just do what they say and don't say anything, because we have life, we have problems. We don't want the confrontation. We don't want what y'all are seeing literally us experience. We don't need the extra stress. We don't want the extra stress. So in essence, we avoid it the same way I don't even put it in the same pattern of the same way they just try to kick us out, because that situation is, if you were at a workplace, people would be going to HR, you would be filing discrimination suits. So we have to act in the same manner, because the school itself is definitely acting as a business. They conduct themselves as such. Right.
So I'm hoping, like, after we get this video out and we share it, that somebody will at least step forward, because, you know, you have the board, you have the superintendent, you have, you know, just members of the community, active members of the community that should also have a concern with these types of things that happen in their schools and different places like that. I'm hoping that it gets out to the right people, because this is one of those scenarios where somebody needs to step up to the plate. And I want our viewers to know that this portion of our live was basically to focus on the problems, and we'll come back next Saturday and we'll talk about some solutions, because that's what we do. We focus on solutions. We focus on ways to move forward. We don't stay stuck in the problem, okay? And if you have any comments or anything like that, please go ahead and post them under the comment area. Let us know. Like I said, we'll get back to it and respond, and we'll definitely address it in our next live that we have. So Alisha, unless you have anything else that you want to say, any final thoughts or whatever?
No, not that I could think of. I thank you for coming. I think I just said, like you did ask, that they said they're going to send this to the superintendent because of the severity of the situation. It may be escalated, but they're already, like you said, we'll see what happens, but it appears they've already made the decision, as you said, you already picked up from the video.
I think they have, and that's just my thoughts, because there's no way that you can come with a number without already having a decision that's been made.
And now, I'm sorry, I was going to say now just, yes, and now different stuff being said, and now things that weren't, like you said, mentioned in the meeting, which I think that would be one of the first two things. He threatened to shoot somebody, and he put his hands on somebody. Those are very, very serious allegations and things to say about somebody. That not being the first thing that is said is an issue. And again, if he was a threat and there was an issue and I wasn't, or he was, why were we able to come into the building freely and be able to walk into a conference?
Yeah, there's a lot of contradicting things that happen throughout this video. And I'm happy that I can be on board to see how this definitely unfolds. And I think that the bigger picture of it is that we definitely need to get together and make change. That's the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that we need people to step forward, because there's strength in numbers, and I need people to actually be a part of what it is that we're trying to do as a community, especially parents of color, because that's where the change is going to have to start. If we continue to wait on schools to be the difference, it's going to be very very, very long time before we start to see the change. So I'm
That's
okay
what we-
with starting. Right. I'm okay with
Right.
starting. We need to just be okay with doing the work. Because we want to make sure that not just our kids, but future generations, right, have a chance to get equitable learning opportunities in schools and be as successful as any other child that's there. And that's very important. Like that's our goal. So I
not
want to
being
thank
nervous.
everybody. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just saying, and not like piggybacking, and not being nervous about saying something and
Right.
thinking that your child is going to be a target, because that in itself is something that you can speak about, because that's retaliation, and that's not okay either.
No, it's not. Wouldn't be okay, like you said, on the work site, and it's not okay in school either. So we just want to thank everybody for joining in on this conversation. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can post it at the bottom in the comments link. You can also reach out to me at info@paandassociates.com, and I'll definitely get back to you. I'll visit my website, different things like that. But Alisha and I will definitely have some resources the next time that we talk.
Yes.
We're definitely going to focus on solutions the next time that we talk, and we want
Yes.
you to also be a part of that conversation. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being a part of the conversation.
Thank you, Yolanda.